Welcome, Margy, to the podcast. Really glad to have you on. I've worked with your team. Excited to talk with you. So will you please let the audience know about your background and what you're doing today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, David. So I am the co-owner of Interview Connections. We are the leading guest booking agency for podcasts. So all we do is book high-level entrepreneurs as guests on other people's podcasts so that they can generate leads and build their brand.
So, and you guys, I don't know how you found us, but we're really glad you did. You've sent us some great guests and we really enjoy that. How do you choose? I'm curious because I'm thinking if I'm in the seat in our audience today and I'm thinking maybe I want to do this because this can help me get known, whatever, create some good content for my site, blah, blah, blah. Actually, that's a good place to go first. What are the primary benefits of someone spending some time doing podcasts?
That's a great question. So there's a lot of benefits. I would say the key benefits are generating clients, especially if you're a service-based business and you can work with people virtually. Podcast interviews are a great way to get clients for your business. It's a great way to improve your SEO because you're going to get a backlink on the website of the podcast or the podcast host for most of the interviews you do. So if you're doing 4 interviews a month, every month for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, which a lot of our clients are doing, those backlinks really start to add up. And then the third thing is thought leadership. The more you're consistently getting out there on shows in front of new audiences, the more people start to know you and associate you as the one to go to, the expert in that field.
And I'm curious, do you talk with your people that you're representing from time to time? Do you have like a regular schedule where you're kind of checking in? How did this go? What was the benefit of, this podcast versus that one or that type of thing?
Yes, that is a big part of it. It's so important. Once you get on the court and you're getting interviewed and you're doing the strategy, there's a lot of re-strategizing that you're probably going to end up doing because we might make you a one sheet with certain topics and questions, and the hosts are asking them and you realize these aren't queuing me up for my best stories. Let's rework the one sheet. Or the audience that I thought was perfect for me isn't working, but this other audience is great. Let's do more of this type of show. So we do a lot of strategy. Our leadership team talks to our clients on the phone every single month and has a strategy call that really is, okay, here's the show criteria we have. Here's the audiences and topics we're targeting. How is that going? How have your interviews been going? What's working really well? We also have their agents are checking in with them every week, giving them an update, asking for feedback on the shows they've connected them with. And then we also have twice a week Zoom calls hosted by our team with our clients that are not only an opportunity for clients to network with each other, because we have almost 200 clients who are high level 6, 7, and 8 figure entrepreneurs. They're great connections for each other. And that's another place too, where they can come to the team and say, hey, this is what's going really well, or this is the call to action I'm using. Should I workshop it? So yeah, there's a lot of ongoing strategy based on the results that they're seeing with different audiences.
Yeah, I can see where that'd be a big benefit. And it's interesting as I interview people, a lot of times in an interview, I ask a question and I'm just flowing with the conversation. I just like people. And they'll say, oh, that's a good question, or, oh, I haven't been asked that before. So it kind of gives them some new ideas that they, as you say, you're kind of evolving. It's kind of like it's not really pitching, but it's like a sales pitch in that you're trying to effectively communicate the value of your services. And here's a way to do that in a dialogue. And you have these regular dialogues with people that hopefully are reasonably good at asking some questions and getting into conversations.
Yeah, totally. And it's a lot different too than just speaking because, like you said, you have a different person interviewing you each time. So when I get off an interview with someone like you who asks really good questions that I haven't been asked before, it then creates content in the moment. And then I've had multiple interviews, and I'm sure this is going to be one of them, where as soon as I get off with the host, I'm voice messaging my business partner, Jess, and saying, all right, we just had this great conversation. We need to get this in our marketing because this is really, really good. We haven't talked about this that much before. So that is constantly happening. So not only are our interviews evolving, but the content we're putting out for our business evolves as our messaging keeps evolving.
Yeah, it's really great. Now, how do you choose the podcast for people to go on? Because there are so many out there right now. And maybe people are just being kind, but I get some really nice compliments from people after I interview them. And sometimes they say, wow, you're much better than, I had recently. And so really like the questions. Conversation was really great, blah, blah, blah. How do you go out and choose which podcasts to kind of get your people on? Because it's a use of their time and they don't have extra time. So that puts kind of a burden on your team to really make certain the podcast, it doesn't necessarily have to have an enormous audience, but the podcaster needs to be good at being in the conversation and helping draw things out.
That is so important. And Jess, my partner, and I are both clients of the business in addition to owning it. So our team is booking us on 4 shows a month as well. And I don't have extra time. So I know exactly how our clients feel. It is very much a full-time job to vet shows. We actually have now 3 full-time employees, and all they do is show research. All they're doing is finding shows, adding them to our database, updating them, looking at how many ratings and reviews do they have, how consistently are they publishing, what are their numbers on different social media platforms, what is the host business, is this a compatible connection? So there's a lot of legwork and research involved. There's a lot of relationship building. So we have hosts who, we have great relationships with. Our agents will be on the phone with them, asking them, okay, the next few months, what types of topics do you want to cover? What types of guests do you need? And sending them our clients who are a great match with them. But then we also are finding new shows all the time because, as I'm sure everyone's seen, especially during quarantine, the number of podcasts out there is always growing. And we don't book our clients on new shows. We wait until the shows are established. They're consistently producing. They've passed that 20, 25 episode mark. They have good sound quality. They're professional. So those are some of the ways we evaluate shows that we haven't connected with to determine if they're a good fit for our clients and our clients' goals.
Well, let's talk about the reverse then. How often do you drop shows where someone comes back and says, I had that interview, basically a nice person. Hopefully they say it's a nice person, basically a nice person, but I don't think that was really worth my time, or for another reason.
Yes. When we have a client come to us and say, hey, this interview didn't go well, this host was unprofessional, or whatever it is, our process is that, first of all, we apologize and replace that booking. And then we have an internal database that is very robust because we have these full-time show researchers adding to it every single day. So we do have behind the scenes notes about shows from feedback we get from clients. And we will mark that and not pitch them again if a client had a bad experience.
If somebody comes to you and they've done some presentations, I mean, they're a leader, right? So can you give me an example of someone who came to you and had limited experience or no experience actually with podcasts, and then how that person grew over time and kind of what happened? And then also maybe give us a story of someone who was more seasoned. Maybe they're more polished. They had a bigger audience already and what you were able to do for them. Because I'm very interested in where you can take someone. And so if you can, you may not, necessarily have to give us somebody's name, but what does that look like for somebody that's considering spending some time and energy in this area?
Yes. So all of our clients, like you said, they're already leaders. They can already speak well. They already know their stuff. They're experts. But we definitely do get people who come to us brand new. So a good example of that is we were at a conference and we met this great client. He's a financial advisor, and he is one of those people who just, when he's in, he's all in. So he, we had a booth. We were exhibiting there. And he came to us the first day. He's like, I've never been on a podcast. I want to be a guest. I want to start a podcast. I want to do everything. And he had this great infectious energy. He's a super, super successful financial planner who owns a large financial planning firm, but really didn't know much about new media. So we're like, all right, let's do it. And he jumped in. He started out as a guest, and his goal was to get clients for his financial planning firm. That was his primary goal as a guest expert. So he went into it with an incredible attitude. He connected with every host. He was forming great relationships. He was asking hosts for feedback. And fast forward about a year and a half, he has a podcast. He is guesting even more than I think most of our clients, more than 4 times per month. At this point, a third of the clients for his firm come from podcasting, which is huge. This is a big firm. Yeah. And it's so interesting. He's such a cool example because when he came to us, he had experience on traditional media. He was like, he is the finance guy on their local news channel. So people, as he says, the lady at the bagel shop knows who he is from being on TV. He gets recognized. He's never gotten a single client from those appearances, even though the audiences are much bigger, but a third of his clients are coming from podcasting. So that's an example of someone who really came full circle with it.
It's interesting because podcasts are really kind of focused on being experts. Yeah. And even though I host this podcast, as a leader, I don't spend a lot of time talking about my stuff, but it still does reinforce the fact that I teach leadership and I've been doing this for a long time, that type of thing. I think it's interesting that you call your team members, at least some of them that work with the people that are going on podcasts, you call them agents.
Yes.
That's great. Cause kind of like, hey, I got an agent, talk to my agent. It's
yeah. And oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, did you do that on purpose?
Yes, because their full title is booking agent, and they really are the agent for that client. In the podcasting space, they are out there telling everyone what a big deal and how awesome their client is. So it really is that type of relationship where they're representing them. And I think it's so important. And we get asked this question a lot of like, well, can I just do this myself or just find a VA on Fiverr who can just pitch me to podcasts? But the person representing you, really understanding you and your messaging and your goals is so important. So whoever that is, making sure that they are your agent, they get you, they understand your messaging, and they're qualified to represent you and your brand.
Yeah, I think that I just want to say to the audience, please never do this with Fiverr. You think of having a receptionist, right? A receptionist is one of the lower paid people typically in an office, but they're your first point of contact with every client, every vendor, anybody that calls your company. They're the first point of contact, and they leave so many impressions. So not quite as big of a degree or emphasis, but I would never hire someone on Fiverr to go try to represent me and trust that someone on Fiverr, like the cheapest site to find someone, is going to get me on quality podcast. The math doesn't add up with that. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so, definitely.
What I'm curious also about, so I work with you. I start getting on podcasts. I've got some backlinks. I'm posting the podcast on my website. Does your organization have any training or have any resources that you refer to help the person also understand, how do I maximize this content? Whether it's on my website, the way I design it, whether it is also SEO and other things that I do, because that's really important. I mean, if I have great content and nobody can find it, I'm not going to get much out of it.
Yes, we talk to our clients a lot about how to promote interviews, how to repurpose the content, and have someone on their team repurpose the content to create more pieces of content within their business. We do weekly trainings that are only for our clients. We have a closed Facebook group that's only for Interview Connections clients. So we do weekly trainings based on the questions that we're getting for our clients that are largely focused on monetization, making the most of the appearances. You know, if you have a VA or a personal assistant, what you need to tell them to be doing for each appearance, what you need to be tracking. So we cover that a lot. And we also, on our client network calls, we have clients who are brilliant and so creative, and we constantly have clients coming up with new ways to maximize the episodes and to do all these cool things. So we'll have them do trainings for the other clients as well, and also share that on the call. So we're really putting everybody's brain together on it.
So what is the biggest challenge you have in your business today?
That's such a good question. So for a little context, we were a contractor run model until 2017, when we realized that to have the highest quality for our clients and to have agents who are trained and qualified to represent them, we moved to an employee model of full-time W-2 employees in 2017. And from there, we've continued to grow. We hit 7 figures last year. We're now at that multiple 7. And I will say, at this point in the business, the biggest challenge is leadership, because it's all about developing leaders within our team, more so than actually doing the tasks ourselves, which was like, that was the easy part.
Yeah. That is a big challenge. So basically you've got people, you're growing, and you need to move people into leadership slots, and they don't have any leadership experience, although they've got some leadership attributes.
Yes. And we have amazing people on our team. I think the biggest challenge as CEOs is making sure that we're really clear with our expectations and what we want to do, and really consistent with our follow-up in that training and development, because we're all over the place. We're doing so much stuff all the time. We're doing stuff that's growing the business. So it takes a lot of discipline to schedule everything out, to make sure that, because you can be the best leader in the world, if the person leading you isn't clear and consistent, it's a mess. And we know that the team is always a mirror of us. So if there's ever something in the team where we're like, they're just not getting this, we've learned what is it that they're mirroring in our leadership that we need to actually fix.
Yeah. So interesting thing that you're looking back at yourself when there's a problem. And so many leaders do the opposite, where that person's messing up. What's the matter with them? And there's an interesting article, I'll try to send it to you, that was written. It was actually an interview of the CEO of WD-40 that was languishing. And he flipped the organization. And one of the key things he did exactly what you're talking about, was that it became every leader's responsibility to develop their people. And when anything went wrong with one of their people, the first thing they did was they said, what's the manager not doing right? And it radically changed the organization, and they went in, skyrocketing growth type of thing because of it. Now, they still had to have the boundaries. There are certain people, you do what you can, but it's not going to work out. But the flip made a huge change in the culture and the engagement of the people, because the larger you get, then of course, the more you do, as you said, you have to delegate, and you have to have a way to track the metrics and have follow-up in your regular meetings and things, so that people stay on track. So if that's the biggest problem you have, what's the second biggest one you have?
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay. So I wouldn't call this a problem, but this is like our challenge right now. we are creating an ascension model, and we're so focused on booking people on podcasts. That is our core offering. It always has been. It always will be. That's the only thing we're taking to market. But we're realizing that there's a lot of stuff that our current clients want to work with us on and that we can offer them. So creating programs for our current clients who want to work with us more closely or in different capacities. So that is what we're really focused on right now.
Yeah. So figuring out which of those programs should be a priority and moving them forward. So curious, when you do that, one of the things I've had to learn the hard way is how much I dive in on those new programs versus doing a lean startup model, which I think was a book, that approach. So what are you finding? Are you guys like going in, diving in full bore and trying to move something forward? Or are you doing a little bit and testing it and then backing off and then assessing and then going and doing another little bit type of thing?
We are diving in. I started with the testing and it just wasn't moving forward. And we realized that it was time to really jump in, because it's almost like this new offering, this new ascension model is almost like a second business, even though it is part of the other business. So we had to jump in the way we've had to jump in on big things in the business in order to see success. So for us, jumping in was the right thing to do, because we were always going to be so busy with the booking agency aspect that there was never really a convenient time. And I would say the way we dove in was we hired a mentor who was a sizable investment, and this is his expertise, and he's incredible at what he does. And we're in a mastermind with him, so we know him very well. We know how he works with clients. So that's our way of diving in, because I know when I get to a certain point that I need to hire a mentor to move this along, or we're just going to be in the weeds forever.
It sounds like also that you're diving in both feet, but you're kind of diving in both feet on a phase one. So it's not like you figured out phases 1 through 4 or 1 through 10 and you dove in on all 10, but you're like, we're going to do a big chunk. It's going to be able to show an ROI. It's going to be able to fully prove this. And we know by our research that this is going to work, but we're not going to overextend ourselves where we're taking unnecessary risks. So forgive me, I'm putting a lot of words in your mouth. So take them back, take them out, change them if you need to, but talk about that a little bit, because that is a problem right now. Here we are in COVID. Businesses are closing, divisions are shutting down, everybody's going remote, not everybody, but a lot of changes going on. Yet I really believe there's huge opportunity out there if you know where to go. And so it sounds like you kind of did the soft steps first to kind of confirm the direction you want to go. And now here's an opportunity, even though it's COVID, and you're going for it. Any of that experience, any more of that you want to share, because that might help our entrepreneurs?
Yes, I think you're right that it's a balance between jumping in, but also being smart about it. For us, investing so much in a mentor just for this, it was a leap into it. That being said, at this point, we have 20 full-time employees. So we're not making the same decisions we made when it was just a team of a few people. We have a lot of responsibility at this point to serve our clients, to take care of our employees. So when I say jumping in, it's not that reckless, but so you're definitely right with your assessment of we're taking the steps forward, but not, jumping in crazily. And I would say the concern is not that it won't be successful and generate revenue. I'm very confident with the mentorship we have and the model that we're doing that it will. The biggest challenge, and this is interesting because this is, I think, probably what people who've had a business and then start a second business learn, is not building something that's going to be miserable to deliver. And that's the biggest challenge. It's like, we could do this and this and this and this. And it's like, yes, but in a year, are we going to want to be spending all that time doing this? So creating a model that's sustainable where we are happy and enjoying it and energized and delivering value, not over delivering something that we can't sustain or that we need to hire a huge team to deliver.
I think you're absolutely right. Also, if we can move back a couple paces, talk about how you, and once again, I'm putting words in your mouth, so forgive me, Margy, how you vetted this with your mastermind group before you did anything.
So we always know when it's time to just do it, when we realize that we've had so many hot seats in front of our mastermind talking about the same thing. And because you can hear it when other people do that, when you're in a mastermind and they keep coming back to this thing and it's like, oh my gosh, just do it. It's time to just do it. We've talked about this so much. So it was at that point where we had talked about it so much and it kept getting put on the back burner. And we realized, based on how much we talked about it and how little we actually had it structured, that it was time to just do it.
Now, I want to ask you to dive in on one piece of it, because entrepreneurs, we love to think we know everything. So we oh, it's all confirmed. Yeah, this is all set to go. Yeah, we got to do this, and I understand it fully because I have these data points. All right, but you were wise enough and discerning enough to realize, yeah, we know a lot about this, but if we pay some bucks and we get an expert in here, we're going to eliminate a lot of the bumps in the road. So would you talk about that and maybe that decision to do that and how you did it? I also really like the fact that the person you engaged, you knew. So you'd already kind of done, not on purpose, but you'd kind of done a dating process. All right. You knew whether to get into the relationship because there was some credibility versus somebody who just walked through your door and you're like, oh yeah, this person can solve all problems. I'll do that because I'm busy over here. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yes, definitely. So as far as I think with high trust services, and this comes back to why podcast interviews are so valuable, not just to get in front of the audience, but also the conversation and the networking with the hosts. Because if you sell something high ticket, that is a service that people really need to trust you. It's that type of networking, that type of deep dive, them hearing you on a show talking about your story and your why is really important. And actually, we met him through a mastermind group. He became a client of ours. And then it was the mastermind group and getting to know him as a client that we had so much information that we were like, he's the one. So he had a great ROI on working with us because then we worked with him. But I definitely think that you need a mentor whenever you're stuck. I forget who said this, but it's probably the most true quote ever, especially in entrepreneurialism. It's not the how, it's the who. If you're trying to figure out the how of something you have never done before, it's the who. You need to be researching to find the person who's already done this well. And once you start doing that, and talking to people in your circles about what you're looking for, the right person, they just kind of show up when you're clear about what you need and you're talking to other people so they can refer you to people that they trust.
If it's okay, I want to dive a little bit deeper on this because hiring is near and dear to my heart. I have an incredible hiring system. I say that humbly, by the way. I'm not saying it bragging. I'm actually doing an 1.5-hour workshop on it right after this podcast. And so many people, when they're in that mode, don't have that connection. You had a track record, so it's pretty straightforward for you, but so many people are not. Then they think, okay, we got to get some help. Well, that's good. But then, people start showing up and they're really good at interviewing or they make really good promises type of thing, but they don't know how to vet them properly. So if you didn't have that relationship, how would you have gone about, kind of making certain that person could actually do what they say they could do? And if I'm putting you on the spot and you don't like that, then I can give my answer. But I'm kind of interested in what your approach would have been.
No, that's a great question. So if we had not known him so well, I would have wanted to learn from him. I would have needed social proof. So either someone we know who referred him or him giving us examples on a call, on his website, in his marketing of his clients and the results that they've seen, being able to see us and our problem, our pain point that we need solved in his case studies of real people, and him actually having the qualifications to advise us on something. If someone is a business coach and has never had a business, their first business is business coaching, that's something that I would be wary of and ask more questions. It's possible that they have a long corporate career with an expertise that is what you need in your business, and so they are qualified, but it is really important to dive deeper and ask a lot of questions, because someone could be a great salesperson, but not necessarily the best mentor. Unless you need a sales mentor, then you can probably tell from the sales call.
Those are, if I heard right, those are three great things. So you have social proof, you have somebody you know who knows this person, there's qualification. You also have skill level experience. So they've obviously been doing it a while, they know what they're doing. And then they have case studies, examples, references, whatever. I'm going to give you a fourth to keep in your back pocket to consider. It's one of my favorites. It is something, when I talk about my hiring system, that this is the one thing people have to do in every role before they hire, and it is test drive. So whether it's 15 minutes to an hour as part of an interview, you have them do some actual work, or whether with somebody like this, you may ask them to do something. Okay, here's the scenario we're going to face. How would you work that out? Or here's what we want to do. Even if you have to pay them for an hour or up to a day, would you give them something actual? Okay, I want to see a deliverable on this. How would you solve this problem? And whether you interact with us to solve it or whether you do it on your own, you come back, whatever. And that is such a good investment, because you really find, particularly when you're hiring regular people, but it works with contractors really well too, you catch the people who are consciously or subconsciously posing. And really, they cannot meet your needs. Or you find, oh, wow, this is exactly what we want. I want more. And it's really great. Sorry, we went off on a tangent, but as we close out here, because we both have appointments coming up, but this has been great, Margy. How do people learn more about your organization, get a hold of your people? What do they do? Because this is definitely something that people need to consider.
So the best way is to go to our free Facebook community, which is called the Guest Expert Profit Lab. They can find it at interviewconnections.com/group. And we have free trainings every week on how to monetize podcast interviews and start using the strategy in your business. And it's a group for 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs. So it's also a great place to network.
Cool. Well, that's great. Well, Margy, this has been fabulous. I wish we had more time. I wish we were sitting near a barbecue and could just continue chatting for a while here, but really appreciate everything. And I'm sure we'll get some people getting a hold of you. And as I mentioned to you, and I mentioned this to the audience, I we plan to engage with Interview Connections in the next 6 months or so to start doing the reverse of, instead of you guys calling me, you'll be calling for me. Woohoo! That'd be great.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much, David, for having me on.